Hi and welcome to the video. I'm Dame and this is Dame Over, and today's video sees us taking a close look at one of the new weapon variants to drop with the June update that arrived on the 27th of last month. And today's video is all about the Annihilator Storm, a new variant for the Annihilator Trench. I have reviewed the Annihilator Trench before, so what I'll do is leave a link to that video in the description so you can see all the detailed stats and how it stacks up against the competition. So with that in mind, I'll just talk about the differences between the two variants and how it perfects the weapon's performance. So if you find this video useful or entertaining, make sure you've hit that like button before you go, and if you want to keep up to date with the rest of the June update content, then make sure you've hit the subscribe button too. So let's get to it. As I'm sure we know by now, a Trench variant means that that weapon will have stronger hip fire stats, making it easier to control when you're firing from the hip, and a Storm variant means it simply has better recoil. So if we take a look statistically at the differences between the Annihilator Storm and the Annihilator Trench, the recoil is better both vertically and horizontally, but only by a relatively small amount to make sure the SMG doesn't become too effective over medium to long range. If we then compare the hip fire stats between the Trench and the Storm variants, the Trench is basically, from all of the statistics appropriate to hip fire, almost twice as good in every area. But you should remember this is all from a weapon that has relatively low recoil in the first place, so you won't notice that much of a difference in close quarters. Firing from the hip is still a very good and probably the best option you'll have up close. Even with the Storm variant, you can lay down so much fire so fast the recoil doesn't really get felt. The only significant difference between the two variants when firing from the hip is the effective range, but as long as you're sticking to those close quarters battles when you're choosing to fire from the hip, you won't really notice much of a difference. So with that in mind, it obviously stands to reason that the Storm variant is a bit better at range, and it opens up a whole host of new options when you're using the Annihilator. On the long side of close range, and even pushing into those middle distances, it's far easier to make your shots count when you ADS with the Annihilator Storm. As you can see in some of these clips, it's far easier to challenge your opponents that are outside of optimum SMG range, which for your information is 12 meters, as all of the SMGs, with the exceptions of the Automatico and the RSC SMG, have 4 shots to kill within that range. The Automatico having 5, and the RSC SMG now has a possible 3 tap kill up to 20 meters. So in those fights that you generally find quite difficult using the Annihilator Trench, you stand a far better chance of coming out the victor when you're using the Storm variant. So what about those fights that are heading into long range? Well, obviously with the Annihilator, its main strength is the rate of fire, and unfortunately at longer ranges you obviously can't utilize that because of the lack of accuracy. So burst firing is definitely the way to go. Firing in 2-round bursts, you can still make your shots count, although the time to kill is massively reduced, so make sure you get the drop on your opponent first and they can't return fire very easily. I have personally had a really good time using the Storm variant. I found it's actually a bit more useful than the Trench variant in those bigger game types. It's perfect to use the Annihilator Trench in something like Team Deathmatch or Domination, where the close quarters battles are very frequent. But when using the Annihilator Trench on Conquest, I'd quite often find myself being outranged by almost any other loadout. The Storm variant though does mitigate this quite a bit. You've got more options to play with as you can challenge at those middle distances, and on the whole the Storm variant makes the Annihilator a far more versatile weapon. But that's just what I think. What do you guys make of the Annihilator Storm? Do you think it's better than the Trench variant? Do you think it's worse? Make sure you let me know what you think down in the comments below. And a quick thank you to those of you guys that are helping to support the channel through Patreon. It's because of you guys that I'm that little bit closer to being able to do this full time, and hopefully with a bit more support in the near future I'll be able to be a full-time content creator. So with that in mind, if you guys want to become a patron yourself, I've left a link in the description, there'll be one in the pinned comment, and there's also a handy button on the end screen that will take you straight to the Patreon page, where if you'd like to, you can help support the channel from as little as $1 a month. So if you had a good time, make sure you hit that like button. If you're new around here, hit the subscribe button too. Make sure you've hit the bell button as well so you get notifications and don't miss out on any future posts. Feel free to share this video with whoever and wherever you like, and until next time, that's Dame Over. Peace.